Recording.
Also wants to call me mom. Can I call you at 2:30? Okay, so the first one to have the Jewish life cycles that we're used to nowadays is Yitzchak. He had a bris at 8 days and a celebration at age 13, bar mitzvah. And in this lesson, we're going to talk about how when Avram Avinu gathered, when he was 13 years old, Avram Avinu gathered many kings, and they were discussing whether or not Yitzchak would be able to continue the lifestyle that Avram had innovated, it was something new, and stand up to, and whether or not Yitzchak would be able to stand up to the giant oak. And I think the lesson is a lesson on strength and Jewish continuity, and just on our heritage in general. So we can start with source one. Should I start? Otherwise, I end up not reading. Source one. These are the descendants of Isaac, the son of Avram. Avram fathered Isaac. Eila told us Yitzchak is the beginning of the Parshat. The Eila told us Yitzchak. These are the generations or the descendants of Yitzchak. Ben Avram, the son of Avram. Avram had Yitzchak. Avram gave birth to Yitzchak, and it's a very famous question. Why does it say it twice? It says Yitzchak, the son of Avram. Avram fathered Yitzchak. It's a very clear repetition in the same pasuk, and all our commentaries ask this question. The commentators ask, why does the verse quoted above repeat itself, stating that Isaac was the son of Avram, and then again that Avram fathered Isaac? The simple answer is that the verse is explaining how it is possible to be a descendant of Yitzchak, the son of Avram, both in the literal sense as well as in the spiritual sense, as the main offspring of righteous people are their Torah study and mitzvahs. This is possible because Avram fathered Yitzchak. What does this mean? Yitzchak's legacy, bris milah and bar mitzvah. Yitzchak set a number of precedents, including circumcision at the age of 8 days, the ultimate form of bris milah, and bar mitzvah at age 13. Avram had circumcised himself at age 99, and he also didn't have a bar mitzvah or similar experience at age 13. There were a number of stages in Avram's recognition of God. 3 years old, 40, and 48, but nothing happened at age 13. Source 2. Rabbi Ami, the son of Rabbi Abba, said, Avram was 3 years old when he recognized the Creator, as the verse says, because Avram hearkened to my voice. Akev was the numerical value of 172, and Avram lived to 175. For Akev years, he heeded God's commandment. This implies that at age 3, he recognized the Creator. We're up to source 3. Once Avram was weakened, his mind began to ponder day and night how the universe could exist without one to lead it. His heart contemplated this until he understood the true and just path on his own. He realized there is one God who runs the universe and created everything. Avram was 40 years old when he recognized Hashem. So these are different sources that tell us different times when Avram recognized Hashem. One is, it says, Akev, you listened to me for 172 years, since he lived to 175. That means they recognized God at age 3 and followed God for 172 years. Another source that the Rambam brings is that Avram recognized God at age 40, because that's when he reached a place of adulthood and he started contemplating if they're the creator of the world, and 40 years. So different sources talk about different ages. We're going to have source 4 that's going to tell us a different age. Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Chanina both say that Avram was 48 when he recognized God. It's Yosef commentary. During the generation of division, Avram was 48 and he did not participate. This implies that he was 48 when he recognized God. So basically, the resolution for these 3 different ages, there are 3 sources that talk about, each one says a different age when you recognize God. The recognition is usually that at age 3, the process began. He first understood that there's a God. At age 40 and 48, he further developed that faith. In other words, it's not either he recognized God at 3 or 40 or 48. Usually, what most people like to follow is that Avram recognized that there's a God at age 3. Doesn't mean that it changed the way he lived, though. And then at age 40, he further processed the idea. At age 48, when the whole world was doing one thing, he was like, I'm not going to be part of that, because he developed that idea even more into action, and he wouldn't be part of idolatry or what other people were doing. But either way, the reason these three sources are brought is to tell us that there was nothing. It doesn't say anything about age 13. So there's nothing at 8 months, at 8 days, right? No bris. Nothing at age 13.
No
If anything,
significance.
there's 3, 40, 48. Nothing, no significant milestone in his life. The first one to have that milestone was Yitzchak, his son, the Rebbe. Both of these events are alluded to in the verse, the child grew and was weaned. And on the day Yitzchak was weaned, Avram held a great feast. One opinion among the sages maintained that this feast was at the Brit Milah. This is alluded to by the Hebrew word for weaned, Higamel. The first two Hebrew letters, He and Gimel, have the numerical value of 8, and the last two letters, Mem and Lamed, mean circumcision. A second opinion is that the feast was at age 13, and weaned here means weaned off the negative inclination and transferred to the positive inclination, a process that occurs at age 13. So it's actually very fascinating that Yitzchak already was doing exactly what we do. We follow exactly what Yitzchak did 4,000 years, 4,500 years ago. No, 4,000 years ago. Brit Milah at 8 days, Bar Mitzvah, some kind of celebration at age 13, and we also know that he's the first Jewish wedding. It's not, right? It's the first wedding that's recorded in Torah. Hi, Miriam, how are you? So glad you connected. Yes. So we're just going to quickly recap. Okay, we're not that far in. We're talking about the Jewish life cycles that started with Yitzchak. This parsha, the parsha starts saying, these are the descendants of Isaac, the son of Abraham. Abraham fathered Isaac. And the classic question is, why does it say it twice? These are the descendants of Isaac, the son of Abraham. Abraham fathered Isaac. You're saying the same thing twice, right? And so we're starting to understand what's Isaac's legacy. He was the first one to have a circumcision in 8 days, have a celebration at 13 years, and the first one to have a Jewish wedding. It says his wedding to Rivka. It talks about the veil, she covered her face, and all these, he brought her into his tent. These are the first Jewish life cycle events, the same way we do that until today. And when we see, it brought a few sources to tell us that nothing significant happened to Avram, at age 13. We don't see anything. It says that he recognized God at age 3, at age 40, at age 48, but nothing at age 13. So Isaac was really the first one to have a bris, a bar mitzvah, and a Jewish wedding. Royal feast. We're up to page 5, where it says royal feast. The Medrash comments on the words great feast, that this was a feast of the greats, attended by Og the giant, and all other mighty people of the time. All the nations of the world had appointed Avram as a ruler over them. So when he held a feast, he invited all kings, including Og. So I'm actually teaching this in Chumash right now to 3rd grade. During the times of Avram, there was this big war in the Middle East. The 4 kings against the 5 kings. The 4 kings were mightier. They won against the 5 kings, and they took Lot captive. It's very funny. The kids are like the hostages. Lot is hostage. I said, yeah, look what Avram's going to do. He's going to drop everything and go free the hostage. To them, it's very current event. And Lot is captured because the king of Sodom is one of the kings who loses the war, and the king of Amorah, and Lot is captured with them. And Avram comes and frees Lot and frees the kings. As a result of this, Avram was really the hero. He's the guy who came to their rescue, and they recognized him as like the ruler. Now he wasn't a ruler; he wasn't making laws in their land. He was ruling, but he was like the guy of their savior. So they appointed him as their guide or their chief. So when
spiritual guide,
yes, yeah. So when he made a big party for his son, everybody, all the kings come. This was like attended by royalty. It's like the Oscars. I don't know.
She was the first influencer. I think Rabbi Konnikov said that last year. He was the first influencer.
So true. So true. It's interesting also that there's a part when you make a bris, it says you're not supposed to invite people to a bris.
Oh, yeah?
Yes, you never invite, you announce. You say, letting you know, if you look at bris invitations, people don't write, you are invited. Why? Because a bris is such a holy occasion that if you're invited and you don't go, it's like you did something wrong. That's how special it is to go to a bris. It's such a holy event that you're not invited. We let you know. So if you can't make it, you can't make it, but you're not invited. We never use the word invite. I didn't know this until I made a bris for my Mendy. I had just had a baby. I called my aunt. I said, I want to invite you to the bris. She goes, you don't invite to a bris. So what are you talking about? She explained that to me. You don't invite because it's so holy. It's so holy. You say, I'm announcing the bris. I'm letting you know what it is. So, but what's interesting is it's not the bris itself. Just a few years ago, I was reading the laws of a bris. After I had all my boys, so I should have done it before. But it says the mitzvah of attending a bris is not being there when they do the bris. It's partaking in the meal. You know, sometimes you go to a bris, but you're in a rush and you just rush out. You should always take food with you because the mitzvah of attending not the mitzvah on the parents is to do the circumcision. But for all those attending, the mitzvah is to partake in the festive meal. Now, where do we learn that you should make a meal by a bris? From here. It says that Avram invited everyone to a big feast.
Yeah, people do that. I just realized. Yeah. People do in Brooklyn. People would do it. They would come to the bris, but no, because it would be right before work,
right? And
they would always take food with them. Now they're like, you know, people have to like order twice as much to accommodate. And I never understood. Apparently, there is a significance.
Yeah, because partaking in the meal is the mitzvah, and we learned about that from here, from Yitzchak.
One question. You're talking about his face, and you didn't mention, for example, the 3-year-old, the haircut, the shirt. When that started?
So the 3-year-old haircut is really just it's not a mitzvah. It's a custom. The reason it started is because we wanted to, one of the things that we do when we cut little boys' hair, we leave face, right? And little babies, little kids won't understand, will never know that you leave them face unless you wait until they're old enough and you give them their first haircut. So that's the significance of only cutting their hair once they have some kind of understanding, which is age 3. Okay. But there's no mitzvah in that.
When that started?
Question, I don't know.
So it depends significance to the period. That's why it's
and many Sephardim don't have the
we don't have the last page.
They don't do upshermish. You know that some Sephardim do. Hello. How's it going?
Hello.
But I know many.
Last one.
What are you looking for? What page? Source 5. Page 5.
Oh, yours is on top.
Yeah.
Ah, that's why.
Okay. I'm confusing you.
We don't have that on my phone.
So source 5, this supports our custom of celebrating the circumcision with a festive meal. Because according to this medrash, Avram made a celebration on the 8th day after Isaac's circumcision. This is a fitting custom, as King David said, gather to me my devoted ones who made a covenant with me over a sacrifice. So, like we said, this is a source for making a meal after you have a bris.
What does it mean, make a covenant with me over a sacrifice? Did they bring sacrifices at the bris?
So over here, when
the temple was
up,
do they usually bring sacrifices?
So it means when you make a covenant with God, you should bring a sacrifice. Our meal is like a sacrifice for making the food holy.
But they didn't do it in the temple, right?
No.
That wasn't okay.
It's quoting Tehillim, when you make a covenant, you should bring a sacrifice. It says when you make a covenant of a bris, that's what bris means. It should be over a meal. Okay, the great celebration. We're talking about the life cycle, the Jewish life cycle events that started with Yitzchak. He was the first one to have a bris at 8 days. He was the first one to have a celebration at 13. And he was the first one to have a Jewish wedding. The debate at the party. Would you like to read? Yeah.
Source 6, Bereshit Rabbah. They said to Og, did you not say that Abraham is a barren mule who cannot father children? He said to them, and now what is this gift? Isaac is inferior and lowly, and I can crush him with my finger.
Mhm.
The Holy One, blessed be he, said to him, why are you mocking his gift? By your life you will see tens of thousands coming from his descendants, and in the end you will fall in their hands, as it states. Hashem said to Moshe, do not fear him, for I have placed him and in his entire nation in your hands.
Yeah, so it seems like at the celebration, there was quite some discussion going on. Og said, look, we thought that Abram would never have children. He was 100 years old before he had a child. We thought for sure. The kings told Og, when you said he would never father children, look, he was 100 before he had a child. And Og said, yeah, I could crush him. This little kid that he had, I could crush him. And God said, his children will crush you. And we know that before they went into Israel, the 40th year that they were in the desert, Og was a king.
He was still
of
a king?
Bashan.
He was still alive then?
Yeah, I think it's a Chumash Bamidbar. I think it's Bamidbar. One of the Chumashim. There's a war against Og, and Moshe Rabbeinu, Moshe Rabbeinu jumps. Moshe Rabbeinu was 10 feet high, I think. I can't remember, 9 feet high, and he has a stick, and he jumps and he hits Og on the ankle. He trips Og, and Og comes falling down, hits his skull, and dies. And that's right before they went into Israel, and all because Og. What they asked Og and the nation if they could walk through to get into Israel, because they lived right next to the border of Israel, and right where Jordan is today, probably on that side of the Jordan River. Syria, Jordan, I don't know what else is there, right? Syria, Jordan, what's down there?
Lebanon.
Lebanon's on top, right? What's down?
What's the one?
Oh, whatever.
Yemen, but it's more on the
Okay.
seaside.
So that's where his kingdom was, and the Jews asked, "Can we walk through because we're going into Israel? We won't take anything from you, not even a shoelace. Not only that, well, even though we have our own provisions, we have man, we have our own water, we'll actually buy food from you, so that you could." Because think about it, they were like 2 million people, the Jewish people coming by. They said, "We'll buy from you. We won't take anything from you. We won't ask, but we'll actually, tourist season, right?" And they said, "You may not come through. If you try walking through here, we're going to kill you." And they said, "Okay, then we have to go to war because we need to get through to go to Israel." This is right before they entered Israel. So they went to war and they ended up killing Og. But over here, it seems like Og is having a conversation and saying, I could crush this kid. I could crush this little guy.
The Rebbe personal notes. In 1942, the Holocaust was raging in Europe. The Rebbe spoke at a bar mitzvah celebration in the USA, opening with the following question. What year did the Rebbe assume the position?
1950.
So this was the previous Rebbe? Or it's before he became the leader?
No, let me see. The Rebbe on the
1942. So in 1942, he was a Rebbe already or not? And right here in the beginning.
Oh, interesting. I don't have that.
Yeah, it was in 1942. That was my question. So it's just
As the Holocaust was mentioned in Europe, the Rebbe spoke at a bar mitzvah celebration in the U.S. Opening the Holocaust. Yeah, so the Rebbe came to the U.S. in 1940, but he didn't become Rebbe until 1950. 10 years.
Okay. We just call him Rebbe because now he's a Rebbe. But back then he was okay.
Yes.
The bar mitzvah is when a child enters the Jewish nation as a full-fledged member and accepts the yoke of Torah and mitzvot to the joy and celebration of his family and friends. From where does he draw the strength for this? This question is particularly strong during this time of crisis when the Jewish people are downtrodden and oppressed. Avram's path is a dead end. And then Rebbe later explained the depths of what happened at Yitzchak's bar mitzvah. Olga argued that Avram's path of faith may be good for him, but it isn't relevant to the youth, that they won't follow his way. This is what Og meant when he said that he cannot father children, right? He meant he only had one child.
Right.
There won't be any future for this path.
Right. So over here, it gives actually in the teacher's guide over here, there's like a lot of extra. Usually just, tells you what page it's on. But over here, it's very interesting. It says, I'm going to just read from here. It's very interesting. Simple explanation of the Midrash is that the celebration began a tragic show of force, a strategic show of force. The king taunted, You told us that Avram would never father children, and look, here is Isaac. Og responded derisively. Derisively? I'm not saying English, choking, laughing. I'll crush this tiny thing with one finger. God said, you will see that his descendants will grow and eventually Moses will kill you. Og later attacked the Jews and tried to stop them from entering the land of Israel. And Moses jumped up and killed him. However, there is obviously more at play here. The first question, especially according to the opinion that the great feast was Isaac's bar mitzvah celebration, is, if this is now 13 years after Isaac's birth, why would Og and his buddy still be talking about the event of Isaac's birth? It would be one thing if they were gathered at Isaac's bris and Og's friends came up to him and look, he said Avram would never have children and now you were proven wrong. But if Isaac was already 13, because there was an opinion that this was a celebration of his 13-year-old, wouldn't this be old news? Why are they still talking about it now 13 years later? So maybe there's more to it, right? It's not just about, was he fathered, but like he had children, but something a little bit more to it. Also, why did Og come to the party and engage in all of this? Avram invited people to a simcha to come and celebrate. If Og was interested in celebrating, he could have just stayed home. Did he really have to come and start threatening the bar mitzvah boy? I could squash him with my fingers, right? Obviously, as we shall see, the story has more than meets the eye. As the Rebbe powerfully explained, this conversation between Og and his friends and God's interjection into the conversation really offers a very profound glimpse into everything Avram stood for, as well as the message from Isaac's bar mitzvah is one the Rebbe emphasized frequently, including in this letter that the Rebbe sent to a boy on the occasion of his bar mitzvah in 1942. Right? Is that what you said? 42.
Yeah.
The first place we find this insight of the Rebbe is in his Rishimus, and a note of the Rebbe's remarks at a bar mitzvah. It was the Kazarnovsky family in New York in the summer of 1942. Now, there's something called Rishimus, which means notes. That was, I think we spoke about this once before. That was found in the Rebbe's drawer in his office after he passed away. Nobody even knew that was there. And it was never publicized. Well, a lot of very interesting stories, a lot of halachic notations, a lot of things that we had never heard about. And there was a big debate whether or not they should print it, because it's the Rebbe's personal note. So there was a whole faction of people saying, do not print the Rebbe's notes. Who are you? Take things from the Rebbe's drawer, right? After the Rebbe passes away and just print it for everywhere and make it public. It's obviously the Rebbe's personal stuff. Then there was a whole nother group of people saying, the Rebbe obviously left this for us. Otherwise, why would the Rebbe write all that down and leave it in his drawer? The Rebbe knew what's going to happen. The Rebbe knew. So there's this whole big thing. Anyway, bottom line is it's all printed, and you could buy them you could buy the books in Hebrew or Yiddish, or you could buy them in English and translate. But in there, that's where the Rebbe wrote notes for his speech at a bar mitzvah in 1942. And what does the Rebbe write? These were dark and challenging times indeed for the Jewish people, as Hitler's trains in Europe brought millions of Jews to a terrible deaths in the gas chambers. We can well imagine the somber mood of world Jewry at the time, and what the bar mitzvah guests must have been feeling. How do you celebrate a bar mitzvah, becoming an adult among the Jewish people at a time where simply being Jewish was a terrifying prospect? At a time when some surely wondered what was so good about being Jewish in the first place, and were tortured by the thoughts of what guarantee they had that they would still be here in another generation or two. I find that, I spoke about the inspiration that I feel women have right now, or people have in general right now, because of what's happening in Israel. But there's also the flip side. I saw twice I responded to women this week who wrote, what's everyone doing for Hanukkah this year? I plan to not put up any decorations. Everyone's scared. And one woman went, so that was just like, should I advertise or not? No, one woman wrote, well, I've always been a proud Jew, and I've always hoped to raise my children Jewish, but my kids' safety comes first, so I won't be doing anything for Hanukkah this year. Not just I'm not putting up decorations, because really, who cares about decorations, right? It's about what you do with your family. What?
Around the US, you don't have to be open the window.
That's the whole point of the menorah, though.
Feels.
I know.
But that's what she feels.
2 hours. 2 hours until,
But this is how she
Because
feels.
yeah.
Someone who's obviously living in the world out there. She doesn't identify that strongly as Jewish, but she writes, I always wanted to raise my kids Jewish, but their safety comes first. I'm not doing, like, it almost sounded like I'm not raising them Jewish anymore. Not just I'm not putting decorations outside. Decorations outside is understandable. Like, I understand why people are scared to, like, ta-da, that's doesn't that, I mean, yes, I always say you have to be proud to be Jewish and don't shy away, but I understand if people are scared and they want to put a baseball cap over their keep, I get that. But it's going further where people are saying, I don't want to raise my kid Jewish because why should they suffer? Why should they suffer the next generation? Why should they, it's really scary for some people. And I'm sure this is how people would say here is that's how people felt during the Holocaust. Why am I even doing this? Will we even be here in another generation or two? What are we doing this for? The Rebbe wrote down this remarkable speech in a personal notebook, and it was discovered in his drawer after his passing. The Rebbe's personal notebook included the novel Torah insights that the Rebbe wrote during the 20 years before assuming the leadership of Chabad. The Rebbe wrote a very small, crowded handwriting, and a team of scholars worked to decipher and explain each deep insight for publication. So these you wrote, you read what the Rebbe said, the Rebbe's notes for this, which is really, really short. The Rebbe explains that the discussion between Og and his colleagues wasn't just about physical superiority. It was much deeper than that. This was a broader, existential debate about how nations and ideologies can best develop and endure. Remember, gathering there that day were the rulers and thinkers and policymakers of their times. And like all leaders, they grappled with the following question: how do you get a people to survive? What must we give our youth for them to feel proud of their identity, secure in their beliefs, and remain true to the path they are shown by their parents? All present at the feast knew what Avram's path was. He taught belief in God and kindness to others. He taught about searching for purpose and meaning in life. Og had always insisted that Avram is a barren mule who cannot bear children. He argued that Avram's path is too spiritual, too demanding, and no one will follow his path down the road. It's a dead end. Did you read? Og argued that Avram's path of faith.
No, we stopped here. Og's approach is the physical mind. About his bedstead, about how he was very big physically.
Oh, yeah. So what was Og's alternative path? What did he think would work? In the mind of Og, a giant of a king and a king of giants, the answer was simple. Survival is a product of sheer physical might. Og was a giant and warrior with a lifetime of physical adventure, the king of Gulliver and Superman combined. The Medrash states that Og was around even before the Great Flood, and he survived by clinging tightly to the side of Noah's Ark, while torrential rains poured down for half a year. He was the only one outside of the Ark to survive because he held on. Og was all about might, power, and survival of the fittest, and that's precisely the worldview he espoused. To Og, it was obvious that what young people need to make it in life is bodily might and physical strength. We should inculcate our children with the spirit of sports, athletics, and military discipline. These values of courage, valor, and physical achievement will fill them with confidence to last for a lifetime. So that's what he preached. He thought that was much more important than the spiritual. So did you read source 7?
No, that's
Okay,
what we
that's what
stopped.
we're up to. Okay.
Only Og, king of Bashan, was left from the remnant of the Rephaim. His bedstead was a bedstead of iron. Is it not in the Rabbah of the children of Ammon? 9 cubits was its length, and 4 cubits its breadth, according to the cubit of the man. The Rashbam says, bedstead of iron. As a child, he was very strong, and when he lay down, he would break a wooden cradle. Thus they made him one of iron. Rabbah of the children of Ammon, it is still there in his hometown, attesting to the wonder of the child so large.
It sounds like they had a museum.
Is it in Jordan? I wonder.
It says in the museum in Rabbah, the children of Ammon, they used to have this great, huge cradle. This is the cradle where the bed that Og slept in, just to show how big he was.
The Rebbe, by personal note, Og's approach was his bedstead, which Rashbam explains refers to his childhood cradle, was a bedstead of iron, meaning that physical strength is the main thing. And from that comes logical ethics of the mitzvot.
So it seems like it's very similar to the ideology of the Greeks. So how can we say that Og didn't do any mitzvot? He was only about the physical. We see he runs to Avram when Lot is taken captive. He's the one who runs to Avram and says, Lot was taken captive. That's a mitzvah. He's helping someone. It's not like he didn't believe in kindness and he didn't believe in helping. He did.
But the Rebbe explains he believed in logical mitzvot. So he believed in the physical strength and things that make sense, like kindness, like helping others, but not the spiritual. So there are a lot of mitzvot that, it's a mitzvah. So to us, it's spiritual. But many people of the land could come to the realization that that is a good thing to do, even without putting any spiritual side to it. Helping others, being just, not stealing, not killing, not committing adultery are all logical mitzvot that we would all understand on our own. He was against those mitzvot. He was fine with them. And that's why we see that he runs to tell Abram, was taken captive, and Abram runs and saves him. So it's not that he doesn't do mitzvahs, he doesn't do any mitzvahs that are more spiritual. The physical kind of things that we understand, logical mitzvahs, he's fine. He's fine with.
Of the mitzvot, Og argued only those that are logically necessary should be observed, and only because they are logical. This is why he advised Abraham to go and save his nephew Lot, as this was a logical mitzvah. The verse states, his bedstead was in Rabbah of the children of Ammon. Rabbah was the capital city, and his bedstead was displayed there in order to educate the residents of the country, teaching them his approach that physical strength is paramount. Isaac's education won't last. Og countered that this offspring is merely a gift, not an organic outgrowth that can take root and flourish. This wouldn't last, he said. He could crush it with his little finger.
So just like the Greeks, when we see them in the two things, they glorified the physical body and they outlawed any mitzvot that were of spiritual nature. So anything like keeping kosher makes no sense. You're not to keep kosher. Saying that holidays are holy days was not allowed. Brit Milah was not allowed. Those kind of things. Anything that was logical, they allowed. And same thing with he had no problem with the logical mitzvot, but he did have a problem with the idea of spirituality. So now, why does he have a problem when Isaac turns 13? Because think about it, Isaac's probably like a bar mitzvah boy, sitting at the head table, maybe giving a speech about Torah, giving a speech about God, giving a speech that goes beyond just the logical mitzvot. And that's when Og was like, no, that's not going to last. I could crush that with
this
my
is
finger.
still Brit Milah, no? Are we talking
Well,
about Brit
the
Milah or
question is,
Bar
was it his Brit or was it what is? Was
so
it
we're
his,
not sure. Okay.
There's
I was like,
both opinions, and therefore we say that he made a feast for both. And therefore he said, there's no, in these kind of mitzvot, this kind of life, there's no, it's not sustainable.
But isn't that what they're all saying, that this mitzvot that we're saying, don't kill, don't steal, even the Ten Commandments, they only make sense for our generation or even like the few last generations, because it's been on for so many centuries, and a lot of people say it because it's Judeo-Christians values, right? And the Christians are also upholding it, but that's what they're saying. They're faulting the Nazis with, that they were highly philosophical and intellectuals. Yet they said that, like they can take any law and like kind of twist it around, because there is no like spiritual
Right, and we
attachment to
believe
it.
that. We believe that even the logical mitzvot of the Torah, you have to do them because God said so.
Right.
We for sure, we have to do all 613, but as an outsider looking in, you could say, these make sense to me, these don't. So do not steal, be kind to others, that makes sense to most people. But yes, we believe that they will only last if you do them all because God said so. Otherwise you end up like the Nazis. You can excuse murder and convince an entire nation that murder is good and that they should be doing that. Right? We always say the Germans were the most enlightened people in those days. They were advanced. So the University of Berlin was the university, right? I mean, Rabbi Manis Friedman, he says the kind of hate that we see with the Nazis and we see with the Hamas and terrorism breeds in two kinds of society because of two things. Are you familiar with Rabbi Manis Friedman?
Yeah.
He's a Chabad rabbi who's just a really good speaker. He wrote many books, and
he's mostly famous for giving single speeches that people are like, they go and they get really inspired, to like actually do get married. Like a lot of people, like he's famous, but
When I
that's
was a
not the
kid,
only
he
thing
wrote
he
a book
does.
called Why Doesn't Anyone Blush Anymore? That was
Yeah,
like,
he's like
you know,
known
but-
for that, but that's not the only thing he
yeah.
does.
So he says he loves saying very shocking things, and then he explains what he means. So he loves when people go, what? He'll be like, God needs you. What? How can you say that God needs anything? And then he explains, right? But he loves doing that because he get everyone's attention. So he says the kind of hate and horror that we see breeds in two things: high academia, when people are highly intelligent and very, very educated and very cultured,
And opposite.
and no, he says, and religion. He says the Nazis at least weren't doing it in the name of God, but they were the most enlightened of the generation. They were educated people. They were high class. We're not talking about people just killing each other in the middle of the Amazon. We're talking about people who are, philosophers and scholars. And he says, look now, well, the Ivy League colleges, look at the anti-Semitism. It's like the smarter you are and the more educated you are, the less morals you have, because we're talking about morals. Morals don't thrive in education. We have failed with our secular education system in the world. Educated people, we say, go to college, our kids should go to college, next generation, but look, people are not any more moral than they used to be just because they went to college and just because they have degrees and PhDs. We haven't taught morals. We've taught information, we've taught philosophy, we haven't taught morals to our kids. And religion. If you do things in the name of, they're killing us all, they burn babies in the name of God. You could fall to the lowest of the low because of religion. Anyway.
Trying to remember if it was Erickson. Do you remember? You probably studied this also in early education. We studied this, how he studied that there is the kids, and that was done in the middle of the last century. So I don't know if it applies, but he studied that the kids have some kind of innate morals in them. So there's like a whole map of like between the age like 2 and 5, kids develop certain understanding, like social norms. Yeah, and then so he made a research that by the age of 12, like between 7, at the age of 7, they start developing like morals, and he called it morals because they start understanding that it's basically understanding that other people have a right to feel certain, like, right, what we call nowadays empathy. I don't think they had the word empathy back then in the 60s. That there is a relationship, like understanding that, like, if I take this paper, it may benefit me, but it may not benefit Miriam because I'm taking her paper. So he said that at the age of 7, yeah, I think it was Erickson, who discovered this. Erickson was the son-in-law of Freud. So he was like very much into it. He learned it. And I'm wondering if that's still true nowadays, because the kids are kind of differently socially wise. They don't develop the same way. With the age of technology, they're more remote from each other. So empathy works a little differently. It's interesting.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the studies. I do know that as educators, we're always taught to help the kids feel empathy. We're always taught that it's that when they're little, it's not natural. That's why a little baby will wake you up. They don't feel, oh, mommy's tired, right? They don't feel about it. It's all about me, right? They develop that. And like in kindergarten, we always have this thing in kindergarten where we send home Pete the cat with kids from every week. Another kid takes home Pete the cat and has to write in Pete the cat's journal. Did they start that yet in Chaya's class? She has Pete the cat and she has a bag. Where they send Pete the cat home, and Pete the cat comes back with the whole story of what he did in your house for Shabbos, over the weekend. Why do we do this? Because it really helps the other kids. It humanizes you. You have a baby at home. Oh, you went to the park. It makes them feel for you, understand your dynamics. You're not just a kid who took my car away. You have feelings too. You have a family too. You have it. So I don't know at what age it develops naturally, but I know that we really try to help the kids at age 4 or 5.
He didn't say it's natural. He discovered that they do have it. That's why I said it probably changes now. Because when he did it in the 60s, think about it, people were more, started paying more attention to the education system, to the way what, and I think that's where the answers came, that he did talk about it. We need to talk to children about morals. We need to bring it in because that's how it becomes instilled in their mind. And he, of course, did it in the Western civilization. So that's what I was saying. I think it's different for like Muslims. It's completely different. They don't have this approach that we need to explain to our children like what the other person feels, because their approach is more like family centered, it's more like patriarchal, like you follow the authority more, it's different. It's very interesting. I'm thinking even in the Western world with the rise of anti-Semitism in college, it's like, how do they not have sympathy? They must have sympathy. They have sympathy for Palestinians, right?
Oh, that's because I know
it's something else. No, it's
because the American psyche, we need the victim and the oppressor. That's how American psychology works. That's how modern psychology works. So they're going to look for the victim, and they're going to make the victim whoever is the underdog.
And it's always worked like that with students. They did that everywhere. Even communist countries, the students were indoctrinated the most and they were watched the most. Remember that whole story in Czech Spring? In Czechoslovakia, I think it was in the 80s. They had it called the Spring because all of a sudden, I don't remember, I don't know the details, but the students came out, started protesting the communist regime, and they killed them all. That it was like the brutal, like the police came out and they like shoot everybody. It was known as Czech Spring because it was in the spring, and they killed, and it was like a show of what the communist, party is about, that they against. So that's the whole point, that with America, it's opposite also, right? In the 60s, it was the students who protested, who brought, and that's what it is. So the students have this thing that they're like teenagers. Teenagers have to protest something, right? It's like you said, they always have to find an oppressor because somebody, it's not about the victim, it's about oppressor. Because they have to
protest. What's going on in America? The white man is the oppressor, right? And the blacks are the victims. That's what we've been talking about for the past few years. The white guy, you are bad. Doesn't matter what you did in your life, even if you didn't have slaves, you are bad because you were born white. It's a very big, so they're doing the same thing with the Jews. The Jews are the Westerners in the Middle East. So the Jew is the white man, and the Palestinians are the blacks. That's how.
So interesting.
You got kicked out of Germany for not being white. You know, like go back to Germany, white people.
Right. But I don't really mean white. I mean we're the white man. I mean we're the oppressor. We were born with we're white privilege. It's the same thing. That's just what they're doing with the Jews.
Also, they think the Jews are more privileged, they're richer, and they don't look at the cause, right? How with the kids, right? I remember studying this, a big thing, like we do ABC, right? When the child behaves inappropriately, the teacher taught that before the child like did the burst out, before he came and he hit somebody else, what happened before that, right? Because maybe that child provoked, and there's a whole thing. So they don't do that. They just see what happened. Only look at the behavior. They don't see it, and that's the interesting part. They don't notice that Israel achieved it within the 75 years. While the Palestinians,
we are the blacks. We were the ones
did
who were
nothing
oppressed.
to even try, even though they had the same opportunities.
Right. We're the ones who were kicked out of Europe. We're the ones who left Europe and came as even in the United States. What did our great grandfathers came here with? Nothing. They're short on the back.
No, they don't see that. They say because you're white, you have opportunities.
That's right.
Very interesting. Let's read the Rebbe. Let's see what the Rebbe will tell us today. But it's interesting.
Isaac's education won't last. You read that already?
I think we're stopping
Yes.
here.
So hold on, let me just read this, just see what we're up to.
We're in
So O countered that this offspring is merely a gift, not an organic outgrowth, and can take root and flourish. This wouldn't last, he said. He would crush it with a little finger. Basically, everyone says, look, he's 13. He's still acting like Abram. So there is continuity for Abram's path. This path of spirituality does last. And Og's answer was no. He's just following him like a child follows his father. It's not an organic, like development of the next generation following in the same path. It's just a kid listening. Wait till after his bar mitzvah, he's going to turn into adults. This will not last. He will not continue in his father's way. Want to read, Miriam? See?
Hashem's message to all was, why are you mocking me? You will live a long life and eventually fall into the hands of thousands of your descendants. Even physical strength and might must be based on the foundation of spirituality and faith. Without this foundation, children will simply indulge in luxuries, which will ultimately harm their physical health and strength too.
Wow. So in addition to just the fact that we are still around, we will live forever, long after Og will be out of the picture, there's also just a deeper message over here, right? Hashem created the world, and Hashem knows how the world works and how the Jews are looked upon, and what works in the world and what doesn't. Of course, people need physical strength in order to survive, right? Survival of the fittest, right? We need to be able to be strong enough to be able to survive physically in this world, but that's only the external part. So yeah, to survive and to win a war, you need the physical strength, but physical strength can bring success, but violence can also, in other words, the bully, if you're the stronger one, the bully is going to win the argument. Physically. But will the bully eventually win with this strong violence and strong conflict? Not necessarily. Strength is not what will endure forever. And like I always quote, the man's search for meaning, having a reason to exist and having meaning in your life is what is going to keep you alive in the long run. And there were studies done during the Holocaust that it wasn't necessarily those who were the strongest physically that survived, but it was those that had something to survive for. Mm-hmm. And so at the end of the day, Avram's path, having meaning in your life, having a spiritual life, is what has endured. And long after Og has been forgotten, the Jewish people are still here. Okay, this is why?
Og was defeated by the sword. This is why the war in which Og fell into the hands of Isaac's descendants was a natural war, fought with a sword, and the Israelites struck him by sword. Not like the war with the city of Jericho, which was fought with the miraculous means of the shofar, or the miraculous war with Sheriff.
Right. So there were many times during Jewish history that we won a war through miracles. Like, we don't know the story of Jericho. They went around the city, right, and the walls crumbled. Og was not defeated that way. Og was purposely defeated. He had to be defeated in a physical way. Even physically, he was defeated, because that's not something that lasts. That's what the Rebbe says here. Moshe defeated him by sword. He was killed by sword through physical strength. Mm-hmm.
This was in order to show that physical strength and victory depends on the health of the soul, which comes from complete faith in God to the point of self-sacrifice.
Mm-hmm. So, the Rebbe wrote these words in 1942. We now live in a time where Jews are physically strong. We're not the poor people in the ghetto in Warsaw, without any arms. We have IDF, we have rights like all other citizens in the United States. We have physical strength, and yet when we are faced with tragedy and when we're faced with existential threat, yeah, of course we have to fight physically. That's not what's going to get us. What's going to keep us alive? What's going to keep us alive is the meaning that we have, and the life that we lead beyond the physical. Of course, we need the physical. Of course, we need to have soldiers that are going out there. But it's praying, it's saying Tehillim, it's studying Torah that is really going to win this war of existence, because our existence
is all about schools. I don't know if you saw, I posted on Facebook, someone put these 3 pictures together, I thought was very, very telling. There was a shluchim gathering this past weekend. So usually there are many, many shluchim from Israel. When they announce Israel, half the room stands up. It's like there are so many Jews in Israel, and therefore there are so many shluchim in Israel, so many Chabad houses in Israel. But this year, because of what's going on in Israel, many, many, many shluchim were not able to come. And therefore they made yesterday's banquet, which is usually in the evening, they made it earlier on, they made it at 1 or 2 in the afternoon. Because they had a banquet in Israel too. All the Israeli shluchim were not able to, the sun came. But thousands, whatever, I don't know how many, stayed in Israel because they weren't able to come. And they had a simultaneous broadcast. And then they put the picture, I posted this on Facebook, the top is a picture of the shluchim, the shluchim gathering in New York. The bottom is the shluchim gathering in Israel this year. Pictures they took yesterday. The middle, they took a picture of all the shluchim who are in the IDF.
Oh, they're shluchim in the IDF. Wow.
So they're serving. Right now they're serving. They're Israeli. Here, look, you can look at it and pass it down.
Somebody take a picture of 770 in Gaza and then. Yeah, like.
It's like an interest 770. Oriel posted it. I saw that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
They're so cool. Then there was a soldier that was.
I was wondering if they're gonna do that
And then
this
the
year.
guys-
Because every year they gather outside to take a picture. Then somebody said it's not outside. They take a picture inside and somebody
No,
just
the
put
women,
the outside.
the women are inside.
Ah, so the men do
it
gather outside.
Yeah.
So I was wondering
Why
if
do
they're
you
gonna
think
do
that's
it this
safety
year.
wise? Do you know these Chabad rabbis, Lana?
Yeah.
Do you know my
I was,
husband?
that's why I was like wondering, are they gonna do it? And I was like a litmus test. Are they gonna do it or not?
If the gathering was on the border of Gaza, maybe not. Are you kidding? Brooklyn? Do you think they're shying away from any public?
I don't think in the
display?
border of Gaza they would worry, to be honest, nowadays. I think Cronkite is more like
None of those.
knowing
None
the
of those.
Cronkite.
These are rabbis who are putting tefillin on with Jews on campus in the middle of a pro-Palestinian,
Oh yeah, I saw somebody
demonstration.
made a video like that, by the way. I saw it on YouTube. This guy, they show videos of all, I think it was a Chabad, all the Chabad rabbis putting tefillin and praying right in the middle of the POP rally.
Was it Italy where the protest about the Italians were Christian, were not Muslim? No, I think that's all it said.
Could be saying what? That they're pro-Israel?
No, they're not Muslim, they're Italy is, no, Italy is Christian.
Right.
It is Christian. Yeah, I don't think Italy has many Muslims comparably. They still do?
The past 20 years.
They
They've
still
been
do.
allowing
With the immigration.
the immigration, like France.
They do let
Yeah.
Because Europe is all
I thought
open.
maybe Italy was more.
There are there are no. That's right. The problem is that there's no borders in Europe anymore.
So
So
because
if,
of the whole.
for example, if you're allowed in through Italy, you can go all over Europe. You'll have France allows them. They come through France. They're allowed in now. They can just drive to Europe. That's right.
Right, because of the Europe, yeah.
It's a different country. I was just
So
in
there's
Italy.
no country in Europe that doesn't have a lot of Muslim population?
I'm sure there are. So I think they like Italy because it's close, like you said, it's close to Africa. They like settling in Italy. They're close over there.
Tunisia.
But terrible. I mean, just this isn't terrorism or anything. But I went to the market in Florence. They have the big. Every city has markets. It's a big thing. The outdoor markets. Regular boutiques and stores sell their wares outside in the market, and so it's cheaper than in the store. I went to Florence has a leather market. There's 2 leather markets. I went to a leather market I was just there last year in May. I don't know. I went with my tzvi when he turned 18. I took him to just for Shabbos. So we went on Friday, went to the market. Every single stall was the exact same stuff because they were all Somalians. I don't know. They were all dark, speaking with an Arabic they used to be Italian shopkeepers. Every shop used to have a thing with their wares. One had leather gloves, one had purses, and you go around and you buy stuff. It's all like, I think it's made in China. I don't even know if it's made in Italy, this leather stuff. They all had the exact same stuff, every single
I don't
booth.
even know if it's
Yeah, that should, well, it smells
Even,
like leather,
even
but yeah.
the mercantile, even like local scenes have changed, like not Italian.
It's great. So one guy was like, you could tell he's real Italian, and his stuff was totally different than everyone else's. It's very interesting. I asked him, I said, hi, how are you? You know, do you have that? And then he said, I have it in my store. If you want to go on the way to the Ponte Vecchio, my store, he told me it was store. I said, could you tell me what's going on with the market? He goes, oh, I'm one of the only stalls left. I have a leather store here in Florence for the past, I don't know, 50 years. When he told me where he's located, he said, I'm one of the only stalls left. He said, I have a leather factory. I'm producing this stuff, selling it in my store and coming here. Everyone else, he said, look, I said, I know they're all the same. He says, yeah, I only bought from him actually, but it's crazy. It's because of all these, the borders are open, so you can't control who's in your country anymore. And Italians don't have any kids. Like there are no babies, there are no children in the streets in Italy. Nobody has children.
Why?
Well, this is not only.
It's a Catholic thing,
in
no?
Italy,
They're
it's
supposed to have
a fact that is going on in Europe.
Right, so different countries are a little different, I think. I don't know, Northern Europe, I don't know, but Italy, the growth rate is like 0.3. Basically, nobody has babies. There's no youth anymore. Think about it, if every couple has one child, you're cutting the population by 50%.
That's true.
If they have 2 children, then the population stays the same.
You're cutting that population. And
Right.
then the Arabics come with all their kids.
That's right, they're having kids, it's crazy.
Interesting.
They had this whole documentary about the like birth control and how it came out and when and I don't know if it's a conspiracy theory, but the person that did it was like Nazi, like it has to be
Yeah,
only
it
married
is.
kids and
I started listening a lot to Kristen Hawkins. She came up on my YouTube. I thought, well, she's amazing. She's a pro-life. She organized students pro-life, and she goes on campuses, and it's just as dangerous for her as to go and like do tefillah. She goes on campuses and talks about pro-life, like what Planned Parenthood. I was telling you, remember what all the pro-choice mean? Pro-choice means pro-abortion. But she actually tells what happens during abortion. So she starts the conversation with always saying, she's amazing. I was like my education really rose as I listened to her, because she says that like, what do you think happens? So she asks people randomly, what do you think happens during the abortion? It says, whatever the fetus is taken. She says, what are the fetus? And they're like, whatever is a clump of cells, they say. All the students say clump. She says, did you know it has been proven? And she's Christian, but she doesn't talk about it. Her spirituality, she talks medically. She's like, from a medical point of view, doctors point out, from the very first time they detect life, there is actual life inside. The cells are growing, it's multiplying. That means there is human life. Exactly what happens to us outside of the womb. And all the students are like completely brainwashed, and they start arguing, they start screaming at her, they like threaten her, get away, you're taking away our women's right. And she says, listen, pro-choice means pro-abortion, and they don't understand it because they're being so brainwashed to see the oppressor, that they're being oppressed as a woman.
So it's right, it's also the way we label it, pro-choice. Right? Or I mean so it's just on a Shabbos, we're talking about, don't say gay, right? You know that, right?
It's a joke in Florida, basically. It's a joke in Florida because in Florida, supposedly there's a law about not saying anything about, because in Florida we don't push it down, but all
so
the
you're not allowed to say it, right?
lefties, they say, oh, you're not allowed to say the word.
Right?
Like, of course,
the same day, it's the way you frame it that
to fit your narrative. It's called.
right. It makes you think it's a certain way.
Bill, it actually said like, if they're going to teach like sex ed in the classes, they just have to get a parental.
Yeah, that's all it's all
Right.
about,
That's
to
the
get a
bill was,
parental.
and then- So they signed that, and Governor DeSantis walks out, he's protesting, don't say gay, he's like, what's going on, like, you didn't even know.
Right.
They were like protesting.
That's how you frame it.
like, and whole thing is so dumb.
But what you said, the eugenics, it's true. The whole thing, eugenics, they said that the whole abortion was planned, why it became legal in America. The guy who organized it, first of all, they were Nazis. They were the ones who inspired the Nazis to do the whole eugenics. And the whole idea was that they wanted to control the African Americans population. That they mostly did it in the ghettos because they were afraid that the white phrase is not, it's a bit silly, but that's, at least they use that. But absolutely, it's so interesting to see how everything is like, but then they covered it up with a nice slogan, pro-choice. You make your choice what to do with your body. And it's like,
on the base in Puerto Rico. A lot of people got really sick.
yeah. They do that in Europe with gypsies. If a gypsy goes to the doctor, they put something in there that makes them cleansing, what do you call that? Sterile, and they can't have children. So they said they did the same thing with African Americans here. Which is like,
They tried doing that with the Yemenites that came to Israel. The whole, if you look
in
at
the beginning,
history,
right?
us Jews, we did this.
DBG. That's what they blaming DBG was as great as a person he was forming the state of Israel. David Ben Gurion. They said
They
the
took
atrocities
children away.
they made.
They took
would cut
children
off their
away.
penis.
They took children away from families. Babies were born. They said your baby died,
Yeah.
and they would give this baby to Ashkenazi, Eastern European families to raise. It's documented. It's terrible. It's our own, our own history. But we did our
They
own.
believed in education being the higher power because they were socialists. If the people who formed the state of Israel
Were socialists. They were anti-religion. They were anti-Jewish. They were pro-state, pro-democracy, becoming a state like all others. So here are these religious Jews. All these Eastern European Jews who came, most of them were not religious at all. I mean, Herzl didn't give breast to his children. He was he hated Judaism. He
was anti.
here these Yemenite Jews came and they were very, very devout. They were to them, this was like the realization of their dream. They could live in the holy land of Israel. They all come, and all these Zionists are like, what in the world? We don't want these people. We don't want these religious Jews coming here, and they're gonna have a bunch of kids. We're not having kids.
It ruined their statistics.
So they every time they had a kid, they said your baby died. They gave it to a Ashkenazi family, a non-religious family to raise.
Yeah, they would take kids, put in commune, the socialist commune.
The
socialists believe that the religion is an opium. It's a famous saying. Religion is an opium for nation, for people. The people, it's not good. It's just a fake, idealistic thing to look forward to, and they really were very highly intellectual philosophers, right? They just were very nationalistic. They believed that Jews should have
their own
country of their own,
and not necessarily Israel. They were just given Israel. They were offered Uganda, and they said yes.
Yeah,
they were willing to take Uganda instead of Israel. It's crazy. We don't, and that's why so many of the religious Jews were so against the state of Israel. We weren't against a state, they were against all the beliefs that were going with it. Thank God we're here today with the beautiful country of Israel with a lot of Judaism in it. Hopefully it's growing.
Back in the basement, stuff, and then all of a sudden it starts floating over Uganda. Like the basement, there's just like erupts out of the sky, and then Hashem's like, what, Uganda's kind of what I say, right?
All right, I forgot they're in Uganda now. So let's redirect it there, right? You remember that movie Up, right?
Contemporary message, the Rebbe. How can we handle external threats? Do you want to read? That'd be last.
There's a directive here for every Jew. When we contemplate our situation, we realize that we find ourselves in a world with bad and evil actions, where the wicked people hold the upper hand. Our world is filled with concealment, as we see in our personal lives, where we spend most of our time occupied with material matters that strongly oppose the matters of holiness, with the strength of obedience and 8-day obeying. The strongest concealment is from our external surroundings, and the Jewish people are the smallest nation. We are occupied with holy matters, and especially when we're holding a great feast where all the nations of the world today you are called by God's name. There are those that come along and think that they can mock and dismiss us.
Isn't this crazy? The Rebbe said this in 1958. Sounds like he's talking to us today.
Really? Wow, interesting.
Yeah.
You can then wonder, where will we draw the strength to focus on holiness? We are expected to focus on holiness, not only the high point of Yom Kippur prayers, but also all year round. How will we be able to handle all this concealment? Here we have a directive from Abraham. The actions of our fathers are a sign for the children. We were all descended from Abraham who paid no attention to the entire world around him and announced that God is the ruler of the world. The world is godliness and there is nothing other than God. This approach of Abraham is what fathered Isaac. So that's what they mean by he fathered. In the same way, every Jew, wherever we find ourselves, should have no fear from those who pride themselves in their physical strength. We have a super rational relationship with God, and we express this in our lives, both on Shabbat and weekdays. We transform the physical to serve as a vehicle for godliness, spiritual descendants of Isaac. This will empower Isaac's physical descendants to be victorious over all those fighting God and his Torah, like in the war of old. May this pave the way for the conquest of the land of Israel led by Mashiach.
Amen.
So they're saying he fathered Abraham, but he also basically fathered him because.
So we're talking not
How
the
could it be
physical
a son?
father, but
Right.
also
How could Abraham have a
spirituality.
son? How could it continue? Because Avram fathered Abraham.
Right, in two ways. In both ways, basically, they're saying. Okay. Good to know. Good to know.
Thanks for coming, everybody.
Thank you. Our pleasure.
Been here for 10 minutes.
Yes.
Yes, more than 2 minutes.
Oh my gosh, that's like a sleeping drug. A baby sleeping on you? When my babies are 12, they told me that.
That's it. You can't do anything.
I was just falling asleep. You just can't get your eyes open.
Miriam, do you need this? I'm gonna give it because the girls asked me later to give it to them, that's all.
What happened with, Laura, she's downstairs now?
Yeah, because we have a baby. And we're getting 2 more babies in December. Who?
That's cute.
Yeah.
Is there another teacher for,
Yeah, Miss Anna.
um,
We have someone else and she will have to put down for the babies.
Thank you. Joining.
for this gentleman over here?